different ways that you can create a grid. One of the things that you're going to need for this tutorial is going to be Lunchbox, and this one you can download for free. I'll make sure to put a link on the description. But in this one, you can create, under the structure tab, you can create different types of subdivision grids, but these have to be dependent on a surface. You could come here to vector grid, and then here there's a different way of organizing a grid. So we'll take this triangular grid, and the component that we're going to use is going to be under Lunchbox, generate attractor, and this one's going to allow us to create a curve attractor for, or a point attractor for our pattern that we're going to create. So that's what this tutorial is going to be about. It's mostly going to be about using point attractors and the different ways that you could use it. So with this one, I'm just going to increase the size to something larger. So I'm going to increase this size here, and I'm going to extract the points. So I'm going to go here and bring in a points component. But notice that the points are not actually the points on the grid, it's actually the points in the center. So depending on whether that's what you want, we're actually going to want to do something different. We want the cells where they intersect. So this may not be exactly the grid that you might want to use. The other way you could do it is cells here you can explode, and that way you can get the points, which are going to be the vertices. But notice that you're going to have way too many, 100, and we know that we don't have 100 here. So the way to fix that is going to be to take these points, and we're going to go to this component called cull duplicates, which is going to take all those points, and as long as I flatten it here, it'll take the overlapping ones and get rid of them. So there's only 21 points now, and that's going to help us be able to keep our file size down and not have repetitive points. And we can use those points here for so this component is going to have different inputs. It's going to have attractor points, target points, and attractor domain. The attractor points are going to be the point attractor. So if we create a point that we want to move around to change the pattern, that's going to be the attractor points. The target point is going to be basically the grid. So we'll put the target points there, and let's bring in some circles. That way we can plug those into the plane and see that this is the pattern that we're going to be using. So I'll actually hide this preview, also hide this preview, and I'll actually increase the extent. So I'll go to 20. So I've created kind of this big array of points. I'll actually decrease that a little bit, like that. I think that works. We can actually go a little bit down. Cool. Okay, so now that we have these points here in the target and we have this radius, we can plug in those values into the radius and already get some variation, but we do need a attractor point. So before that, let's actually bring in a point. So I'll go here to a point, bring that here, select it, and then in here, bring in a point component, and then set one point. Now I can use that as my attractor point and plug in the values, and then see that these are smaller and these are going to be larger. Now, the way to increase the size quickly is going to be to multiply, because we want it to be bigger. So we'll go here and we'll type in a multiplication value, and we'll take all these values and multiply them by 5. That way the numbers that come out are actually going to be remapped into larger numbers, and this is the kind of effect that we're going to get. So this is just one point. You could use multiple points, but notice that this is the only parameter that we're going to need to kind of change the size of the pattern. there is a way to fix it so we can actually pick the smallest size and the biggest size. So that's why when you get in here, they get too small. If you wanted to pick the smallest size, you could, and there's a way to do that, and that's going to be to remap the numbers that come out of here. Also, notice that when we bring out these points that come here into the attractor points, or into the target points, and then here into the plane, I'm actually going to bring in a point and actually use this to plug into here, and this one to plug into the points. That way, if I ever wanted to, and then this will be my attractor point, and that way if I ever wanted to, let's say, use a different grid and I didn't want to use this grid, I could just bring in a new grid like this and just have to plug it into one. So if I bring in this grid and I plug in the size of 15 extents and then points, all I have to do is change this point to these points and then make sure to flatten it out, and now I have basically that curve attractor switched over to a grid. So that's why I will use, if this grid points goes to 2 different inputs, I'll actually switch that out to one of these. That way I can easily change around the pattern and use a different grid fairly quickly. Cool. So now that we're at this point, the next step is going to be to remap the numbers to pick the biggest and smallest, and we'll have the ability to use 2 different types of grids. Okay, so remember that when we brought these values from this point attractor, we just did a multiplication, and this is a good way to change the size fairly quickly, but it's not going to give us that ability to change to a specific number. So I'll delete this one, and if you haven't seen one of my other videos where I go over remapping numbers, this is the same thing that I'm going to do here. So if I go fairly quickly, do reference the other ones. So we're going to bring in 3 components. The first one's going to be remap numbers. The second one's going to be bounds. And the third one's going to be construct domain. And so these 3 you bring in at the same time. This one's going to give you the ability to pick the biggest and smallest number. This one is going to give you the biggest and smallest numbers of your distances. And here for the value, we're going to just go straight from the distances that we get, or the values that we get here from the point attractor. So we get these values, we put them into the numbers here. So we get the biggest and smallest number. Then this value, we're going to put it here into that value. Then the bounds, we plug that into the source, and our target is going to be our start and end. Right now they're the same, but if I were to pick one to start, let's see, I'll go 1.20, and so we'll start and end with this. Now basically these circles, the radius is going to be here with the remap numbers. So we had 78 numbers that started with 8. Now this one, we'll see here, that's 78 numbers that started with 0.9. So that's how the numbers are remapped, and there we go. Now we have the ability to actually pick the biggest and smallest number. And because sometimes you don't want these circles here near the attractor to be so tiny. You want it to be a little bit bigger, not super small, and then these out here, you want it to be a little bit bigger. So that's how you're able to kind of fix that. And like I said in the last point, in the last portion of the video, is I'll make a quick copy of these 2 points, and you could set multiple points. and those two then become the point attractors that it references. Now it does have some issues, because when I do put a point attractor here and another one here, the ones here in the middle actually stay the same. I would think that if I moved this one away, the ones here in the middle would actually get bigger, because this one and this one are getting away. So I did find that there are some issues with using this point attractor with multiple points. So that's just something to be aware of, but I wanted to share with you guys this component, which is basically going to be the point attractor that generates the value list. So if you do have any questions or have ideas for future videos, let me know. I'll make sure to add this to the description along with a link to download Lunchbox. So thank you for watching. Subscribe if you like this content, and hope to see you next time.